This squishy man-at-arms head is back, ready for some fantasy action in today's game Venture for your Atari 2600, with artwork that looks like it could have came off a knockoff He-Man toy that you found in a drugstore in the 80s. Let's go ahead and take Venture, pop it in my Atari 7800 Pro system, and see how it holds up today. Let's go to the game. Hey, Prince Adam, watch out for snakes. Venture was originally published by Coleco for the 2600 and carries a copyright year of 1982. It was later republished by Atari themselves in the late 80s. It is based on the 1981 Exidy arcade game. The 2600 version was programmed by Joseph Beal, who would later co-found Comavid, a third-party 2600 game-making company that didn't last very long. According to the manual, you are Winky, which is probably the least intimidating name of a warrior I've ever heard. Typically, if your name rhymes with a Hostess snack cake, you're probably not going to come off as being tough. You, Winky, are deep inside a dungeon laden with incredible treasures, which are guarded by terrible monsters who aren't scared of a guy named Winky. Now, with only your bow and arrow, it's up to you to survive the dungeon while collecting your treasure. Venture is an action game for one player only with 4 skill levels controlled by the difficulty switches. You place both switches in the B position for skill level 1, the left switch in the B position, the right in the A for skill level 2, the left in the A position and the right in the B position for skill level 3, and both switches in A position for skill level 4. The game plays like a mix of the games Adventure and Berserk. You start the game in a hallway that contains 4 chambers and several hall monsters, who will kill you if they touch you since you obviously don't have a hall pass. On this screen you cannot attack, so your best bet is to make it into one of the chambers as quickly as you can. Once in the chamber, you will see a treasure and the monsters guarding it, or obstacles to avoid. Here you can shoot your bow and arrow in the direction you are facing by pressing the fire button. If you hit a monster, he will die, but his dead body will remain on screen and is deadly for you to touch. Why can a dead monster kill you? Because your name is Winky, that's why. You can leave the room at any time, but the goal of the game is to get all the treasures in all 4 rooms. If you stay in a chamber too long, a hall monster will come out to chase you out, similar to how Evil Otto worked in the game Berserk. If you get a treasure out of the chamber, you cannot go back into that room, but if you get all 4 treasures, you'll move on to a new hallway with 4 more chambers. The game continues to switch between the 2 hallways with increasing difficulty until you lose all 4 of your lives. Scoring wise, you get 200 points for every treasure collected and 100 points for every enemy you shot after you collect the treasure. If you shoot them before, you don't get any points at all. Graphically speaking, I wasn't really impressed with this version. I didn't find any of the characters impressive, and in the hallways you're just a little dot, which was really hard to see on my TV. And while some versions of Venture shade the rooms in when you collected the treasures, this version does not. The sounds of the game were okay, but they did sound mostly like your average generic 2600 sounds that you've heard in other games before. Family friendly wise, there is a lot of action but no blood, and the game would most likely get an E for everyone rating if released today. At the time of my research on eBay, the original Coleco version for loose copies was going for $4. One complete copy sold for $18, and one new copy also sold for $18. For the Red Atari re-release, loose copies were going for $4 to $5. Complete copies were going for $10 to $12, and new copies were going for $8 to $11. Yes, new copies were actually cheaper than the complete copies, and these prices include shipping. So what did I think of Venture? Honestly, it really didn't do anything for me. To me, the character felt like a giant slow-moving orange with a really tiny gun. Occasionally, moving felt cumbersome, and it was sometimes hard to hit the enemy, and I really did not like the fact that touching a dead guy could kill you, and that your name is Winky. So where am I going to rank Venture? Sadly, it's going to be pretty low, somewhere after 100. I like Real Sports Tennis more at 103, but I will put it over Defender, whose constant flickering really bothers me, at 104. So out of the 122 games I'm now ranked on the 2600, Venture is winking into the 104 position. Venture is not that impressive on the 2600. I recommend playing Adventure or Berserk instead. So what do you think of the game? Whether you agree or disagree, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Also, feel free to click the like and subscribe buttons and follow me both on the Facebook or the Twitter, and I'm a member of the Retro Junkies Network. At this time, I'd like to thank everyone who supports the show on Patreon, including Ryan N., Mark A., and Joe T., among many others. Thank you, everyone. If you'd like to become a Patreon supporter, please go to patreon.com/NoSwearGamer. Thank you for giving me a little part of your day, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the next episode of the No Swear Gamer. Take care and never, ever name your child Winky.